On today's program, Myron Dewey, Indigenous journalist, activist, educator, and advocate for civil rights. Myron's unique work has shed light on the oft underreported issues facing Indigenous peoples. He turned heads last year during the Standing Rock controversy. He used drone technology to report on the injustices taking place by local law enforcement officials. But 1 year later, is Standing Rock really over? Myron says no, the fight goes on. He's doing everything he can now to inform people on what is unfolding with Indigenous rights near and far. Myron Dewey, welcome to the program today. It's great to have you on. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yes, tell me what that is. Your beautiful thing you just said.
Bija is good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It really means is when the sun starts to rise. There's a little bit in between where all of life stops to watch the sunrise. Animals stop, people stop. It's just a really special time. So a Wopawa is when the sun starts to rise above the mountains back home. And that's what we say Bija, which is just kind of bringing it to modern terms, you know. It means everything's all good. So Pisha Awomawa.
Pisha Awohawa.
Awo-mo-wa.
A mo.
Wo.
Wa. Wa. Wow, thank you. Thank you for that.
All right.
I love absorbing all that and what's new. It's great. I think we have to keep doing that every day to stay vital and young.
People are learning it online when I'm speaking Paiute. They're also responding back with Pisha Awomawa in the messages, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's amazing. Well, you're an intrepid soul. I've been tracking you for several months now, ever since you came across my radar, and ever since I began learning more about Standing Rock. Curiously, after Standing Rock and all the events that went down there, I had a colleague and a few connections, and I came in sort of around the 6-month marker of what went down or when Standing Rock, when things sort of subsided there in that particular way. But there's still a lot going on, and there's still a lot going on with you, and especially creatively. Now, you have a documentary called Awake, which chronicles some things that occurred there, and you're brilliant in a lot of things that you do as a journalist and an Indigenous journalist and talking about these issues. But I'd like to start with Awake, and if you can talk to us a little bit about and remind me too a little bit about what Awake is about and why was it important for you to create it.
Well, Awake is done with two other directors, Josh Fox and James Spion. And at that time, you know, I was still filming out there. I've been there, we were counting yesterday, 11 months. Next month in August will be a year. And so I just left about 3 weeks ago from up there in Standing Rock, but I've been documenting all the things that we've been seeing happening, like a history, and history is repeating itself. And so it wasn't hard to document the police brutality. It wasn't hard to document the inaccuracies, the yellow journalism, all the things that were happening to us. And Awake really just covers an overview also of the beauty of the camp. You know, what it was about, what was every day like, and the day in prayer. It was a demonstration of prayer, but we're so conditioned to think that this is a protest. But for us, this is just a way of life. It's
right.
To acknowledge those things and that are sacred. To acknowledge the water, the four-legged, the things that we forget about. That a lot of people get in the city life, and they quit acknowledging. And a new one was there is no ceremony for, there is no words for, which is desecration of sacred sites. And that was something everybody got to feel with us that was there as an ally and supporters, is that the Dakota Access is cutting across burial sites, ancestral land. So this documentary really highlights an overview through Indigenous eyes, but it also shows what happens when allies come. The producers on the film are Mikasi and Florice and Doug, and they really they're the ones that create that narrative on James and Josh Fox's. So that lets you know that this is what an ally does when they bring the tools to help tell a story. They're not telling your story for you. And we've been helping Hollywood understand that. That's been coming down to Standing Rock. And they've been really receptive to that. And saying, we finally get it. Now we know why you're upset when we have just war bonnets or things that are in these movies, or it's disrespectful. They're a part of the prayer. So being a part of the prayer means you came down to the sacred fire, you got to pray in your own way, and in this film you're seeing that this is all it was. But the other part is that I highlight is that not only is it a demonstration of prayer, but 814 were arrested, and both on the federal and in the state side. So with that number, this is to highlight and have people attention towards the due process violation that's happening in the court system out in Morton County. What are the charges people are getting? Felony trespass, we're praying. They were arrested anywhere, whether it was on the road, on the side of the road, in the area. It was inciting a riot when you're praying. And all these charges are getting thrown out. And people who don't have the right representation are plea bargaining, and their charges are getting thrown out, if they don't get in trouble within a year.
Right.
And that's
right.
still wrong. It's because they don't have the representation. So this film really highlights an overview of the Standing Rock coming near you on what to do. What do you need to do? And what does it mean to be in unity and in prayer, in a movement that's based out of love, and all the things that are coming together as a community initiative, a community sustainable community. I mean, Standing Rock was so much of all those things. It was really a once in a lifetime for some people.
Wow. So your particular part of the documentary traces what particular element? Can you tell us a little bit about what we'll see there? Because there's. Yeah.
You'll see the human rights violations. You'll see the constitutional violations. And at that time, the Avenger wasn't documented. We finished this in around December, January. But after that, the National Guard had put an Avenger, which is a Humvee with missiles on the top, for the drones on the other side. And so that is an act of war. And the last I checked, Standing Rock Sioux Tribe did not have an Air Force. And so for them to deploy that was an act of war in U.S. soil. It was something that really scared a lot of people to say, hey, what are they doing?
Right. So can you let's back up a little bit. Can you take me back to that moment? I mean, there you are, and you see that. What are some things that came to mind? I mean, I'd freak out. I'd be like, what is this? So,
look, I think the things that they were showing us, and I'll show you a few things. I'll show you the Avenger. One of the things is that this is nothing new for Indigenous people. We've been seeing this for the last 500 years. But for everyone to finally see it, it really just opens the door for people to say, hey, this is wrong. But we got so desensitized. We're used to seeing this stuff, that. Let's see here.
Yeah, we can see that.
The Avenger right there. But also, the last treaty camp part is to see, Homeland Security hanging out the window with a sniper. So these didn't get to make it into this film, but they will make it into the next film. And to show people like, the people we seen out there was like Kyle Thompson, who was an infiltrator, pretending to be a water protector with an AR-15. I mean, these are the things that I documented out in the open. And the other thing is when you're seeing these guys dressed up, these mercenaries.
Yeah, right.
It's like a movie, the way they're looking. These are in the next documentary. It's going to be more in depth. That Tiger Swan was there. They controlled what's called the battle rhythms between the state and the government, the state government, and then what was on the ground to control the narrative as much as they could. Kyle Thompson's role was to cause that disruption, to make it look like it was a water protector, so it justified the things that they were doing. And in their Tiger Swan leaked documents, there is a lot in there where they believe they were dealing with insurgents, So if you got guys that are coming from war and bringing them into our homelands, that's how they're going to treat us.
Exactly. Right. Right.
So, I learned a lot from being there, and the next level of what our ancestors had to go through and how the massacres happened and the things they happened over, which is ceremony. Every time we would put up a teepee, Morton County would go crazy, and they would line up almost a mile back of cars ready to pounce, like something really serious was happening. And I would document the whole thing. I'd send my drone up in the air, and I would watch them over the hill with their binoculars, waiting to come across and come down like we were doing something. And they would cause us fear. And this is just what I am assuming is this. They would cause fear because they wouldn't come over the hill, but they would sure shoot to that spot where they were parked, at up to 80, 90 miles an hour. To me, that's creating that fear in the guys that know nothing about what's going on. And speaking with Kyle Thompson, he validated it. They had a lot of propaganda going.
Yeah, now that he's an interesting human. Well, we're all interesting humans. But he's an interesting character because he recently came forward and on one of your reports on Facebook Live and talked about what it was like for him to be on that side of it. So, how do you go about getting that quote unquote other side to understand who you are, who your people are, and what is vital and what's important? I mean, certainly Kyle came around, and so maybe you can talk a little bit about that. So that because you talk about healing from both sides,
there's a lot of mechanics in that have made that happen, and a lot of hard work from people as well. But for him to come forward, it was his girlfriend that came first, and she talked him into it. So, Courtney's a little bit more, seems more balanced if you speak to the both of them. And for Kyle to come forward, it has to take a lot of courage. One of the things we wanted to ask, I asked him is that was asked to me is by an elder was, who's his family? And are they supporting him? Because this is history, and his family is going to be noted down in history, not just him. His family will almost pay for his faults, which is hard, and he's, to me, seemed like he hit rock bottom. He's been cruising around Morton County area on a quad. We saw an article where they wrote, unidentified man gets away from police on a quad.
Wow.
It's like, this is this guy. They're being chased by the police and evading them and getting away, and we know they know who they are because there's nobody else on a quad, and they've let him go twice. They don't bother him. So this guy's got a lot of information that's obviously lets him do freely what he needs to do. But to be a part of that prayer circle again is to say, hey, you know what, you did wrong. We're not gonna we're gonna hold you accountable, but not the way you think we're gonna hold you accountable. We're gonna spiritually hold you accountable and bring you back to that circle so you can deal with that. You can learn how to deal with that, because I think from years to come, he's going to be wondering, what was I doing? He's also Lakota.
Yeah, which is fascinating. I mean, so he's pretty much and correct me if I'm wrong. He's pretty much having a kind of spiritual, esoteric reevaluation of things, right?
Yeah, his DNA is having him is coming forward.
Yeah, right,
and saying, hey, what are you doing here? And it's but it's for us. This is nothing new when it comes to our own people being scouts for the U.S. military. The cavalry.
Right.
In history, there was Native scouts that was for the cavalry. So this is the 21st century, second decade of the 21st century scout.
Exactly. Right. So what do you feel, what would you like people to know about Standing Rock now? I mean, we are in the latter half of 2017, and clearly you're going around and really getting a lot of the word out there still about a lot of things that occurred there, and a lot of things about the indigenous people of the area and indigenous people in all of the country. What's very important for us to know right now about Standing Rock and what occurred there? What do we need to know about now?
that it wasn't just Standing Rock. Standing Rock did the call out, which was the youth that ran to DC from Standing Rock, and LaDonna, who I've seen her live feeds, asking for support. And this was one of the things that, not just Standing Rock, but over 400 tribes came to support Standing Rock and sent their people, their medicine, their songs, their ceremonies, their protocols in their communities. Their young people, elders came, aunties, uncles, and then also over 550 churches from around the United States and the world came. And then 4,500 veterans came to fulfill their constitutional oath that they made. And they shared that. And they also apologized, both the churches that came apologized for the sexual abuse, the child molestation. They apologized for the doctrine of discovery. They had a draft template of the doctrine of discovery, and they symbolically burned it. And the veterans asked for forgiveness for the taking of the land, for the minerals, and the lying, and the broken treaties, the broken promises. So there was so much healing that was happening that I needed to see it as a historical trauma trainer. I cried several times, and I continue to do when I see it, or when I think about how powerful those moments were for the healing of both sides. How allies came and knew nothing about our people and left educated and know where to go for answers now about anything that they may hear. And there's a lot of miscommunication when the wrong information is put out there. And in this history, America has not been putting out its accurate information into the school systems, which I know as a professor, we're always dealing with the ignorance. So re-educating on the indigenous issues. And now there's a sided source. It's a place, very rare place, all at once, where all of these people came, and they can go Paiute, they can find a Navajo, Lakota, Ojibwe, Choctaw, Seminole Creek. They can find any tribe they want and communicate with them and talk with them and go eat at their kitchen and sit with them and hear their stories. It's beautiful. So the only other place I could say that you can find that at would be Haskell Indian Nations University, where all the nations come in college, and you can get educated over there as well. That is that we are still here, and we are still defending 65 to 70% of the natural resources that are on the reservations or around the reservation. And that at any one of these environmental fights, you're going to see indigenous people there at the front of that.
Right.
Whether it be in the front line or in DC.
Yeah. So, and now, the pipeline's flowing. And so what have you realized, and what have you heard from that reality now that that's happened?
Well, there's a rumor that they're having to stop, and we're not sure exactly what that means before we get confirmation on the exact reason why. My assumption would be is that they've had several leaks, reported 3, but we know they had more leaks because I witnessed how they were just throwing pipe on the ground. Farther back, about 80 miles, the pipe was laid perfectly in lines. You know how they lay it down, perfect. When I saw it on the Highway 6 all the way to Standing Rock, it was they were just like thrown. They were moving as fast as they possibly could, and I documented that. Also, other pipeline workers said they're making mistakes. They were watching through those live feeds that they were making mistakes, and we're going to see those mistakes happen as they continue to time goes on and the pressure builds up. So what I think is going to happen is the court and the legal battle is all those things are still coming forward, and now we have that second wave of the intellectual warriors at the front line, knowing what those codes are, knowing what those responsibilities for the due process are, knowing the human rights violations. United Nations was there, all these different organizations that were there, internal affairs documenting. It's now up to them to hold them accountable and to say, what are you going to do to Morton County? What are you going to do to Dakota Access? What are you going to do to Army Corps of Engineers? Who is responsible for not doing the environmental impact study? Who allowed them to go through sacred sites? A fine is not enough.
Right. How do you stay grounded in some of this madness? Because it does seem a little, it's a little out. It's out there. It's like you're fighting a huge system that's in place that when you're at Standing Rock, it was very militant in a lot of ways on the other side. So how do you stay grounded? Because you seem like a very grounded individual, very rooted in who you are, and I'm curious about that for you.
Well, the militant part was militarized, untrained police force. That was the scary part. Them pulling the trigger the way they did. Staying grounded is really what we learned at Osheti, is having your spiritual pillars. And it comes back to me of what I witnessed. There's times I get pretty emotional. I'm watching this footage over and over and over, and I'm seeing what's happening to our brothers and sisters out there, our allies that are coming through and standing in the front. It's very emotional to see that. And I have my moments. It was just a recurring dream of the percussion grenades and the Alarads and the voiceover, telling us to get back to the South Camp or the North Camp. And, just all these times it plays out in a dream like a movie, and it's a different scene all the time. And I imagine a lot of this is what the vets go through with PTSD. I just know that it's probably when I'm done, that it's probably going to come back harder, and I just have to continue to go back to those teachings that I learned and the spiritual pillars to help me stay grounded. It's going to come, and it's already coming. Every time I slow down and take a break, the thought comes when I'm sleeping, and I just think about all the people out there that don't have support.
Right. I mean, I think one of the things I found when I was at Standing Rock, like several weeks, in July. So, I, especially with the youth, which such dynamic people, but there was a lot of discussion about ancestral trauma, inherited ancestral trauma. That must be something that needs to be addressed or spoken about more, don't you think?
It is. One of the things that we were talking about at Standing Rock was rewriting our DNA.
I love the sound of that. That sounds great.
And cleaning it with that spiritual component that was all over. If you went to Osheti, Sacred Stones, or Rosebud, you sit in it, you witnessed it, and it's important that you rewrite it and you come out of there as part of your healing, so you don't pass it on to the next generation.
Right. And that's powerful. That's really powerful. But do you think that there's how does one, because I explored this subject too when I wrote about my Polish family's ancestry, and they were taken, deported by Stalin, and their land was taken away. And I noticed I got through all of that, the writing of it, the going through it, the understanding their tale. But when I stopped, moving, it was when everything really became very emotional. Yes. So do you think do you think it's necessary and important for people to feel that, to purge that in order for it to heal?
I use it.
You use it. Okay, so how do you use it?
I use it to keep going. I use it to strategize and think about what was used against us. If I'm starting to feel PTSD, I'm thinking, wow, this is war tactics they use. I got to get with the vets and ask them, what were the tactics they used? Well, one of them they used was flying the helicopter all day, and then all night they would fly the plane with no lights on. And they were doing tactical moves up on top by coming forward with the whole police line. There's things that they did that were tactical use for suppression, and the media as well, by the language in the media, and the floodlights that were pointed at the camp like a concentration camp. They did these things, to create. This is in war. This is what they did, and so it's a crime to do that to your own people. And this is what we're seeing. I use it as a different way. I just strategized, I think, outside the box. I know that there was a hired contractors up there, which was Tiger Swan. I know there was several other contractors that were hired that were completely untrained, and to hear them on the radio and the way they talked about raping our women, having half-breed babies. This is radio talk that they were doing. They stole radios, and they were just saying obscene things that really hurt a lot of the people listening. But you can hear on the radio, stay in prayer, guys. Don't react, and don't give them that energy. Don't give them away your medicine.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy for a lot of people that were young people that, the anger came first. But we stayed there in prayer. We did the best we could against all the conditions that were coming from even infiltration that was coming from the inside to create that turmoil, that gossip, or to plant a seed of suspicion that was real. And the best we can do is to have somebody strong around you that understands that when you get that way, you get sad or you get depressed, and know that's you got to have your strong connection to make sure that you can get through that. I just spoke with a relative of mine that came up there with me, and he just said, "You're only human. You're only human." He had to realize I'm just human, and this is okay to feel this way. And he went and got taken care of spiritually, and he denied it for a while. Tried to be tough, tried to be man. He said, and he goes, "That don't work."
Right. No, it doesn't. Doesn't work. Yeah.
The ego's got to let go.
Yeah. That surge of emotion, of pain. It's there for a reason. Obviously, we're supposed to look at it. So what's next for you for this fall? What's next for you? Awake is now available on Netflix, and people can go there and check it out. But you're also crafting another film, another documentary. Is that right?
Yes, it'll come out on the second. A lot of what we did not see behind the scenes that is really important for America to see. This is what happened on the reservation. This is what happened on U.S. soil. This is what happened to not just the indigenous people who have their own sovereign government, but also American citizens, as well as international. A lot of international people were there. What does that mean when we treat our guests that are international and they have to see this?
Yeah.
From all over the world.
Yeah, that's very, very sobering. So, Myron, one last question for you, and then I'll let you go because I know you're full of busy things, editing and things like that. And folks, look at digital smoke signals. Myron Dewey, look at the bottom of the screen. You'll see some ways to connect with Myron and find out what he's up to and keep track of him. Amazing things are going on in his journalistic world. But Myron, what was one of the most interesting things you learned about yourself in this last year?
Oh, I learned how to take criticism from constructive to abusive to trolling to social media to on the ground. It's been a really humbling journey. Right now we're dealing with a lot of help, though, helping us. As I just came from DEF CON, and which is a tech conference, I'm trying to understand what is it we witnessed at Standing Rock, a tribe that was in the digital divide, and then a forced digital divide, and then gets moved out of the digital divide, and there's data extraction happening to your phones, mobile phones, your laptops, anything that can get a text there, your iPads, Androids. And I learned a lot from these guys, these tech guys. They deal with it in the cyber world, and we were in a digital divide, being spied on, our information being taken. And the other thing is I learned about the social engineering part that I learned about myself was that the social engineering comes from peer-to-peer like we're doing. But what we're dealing with on social media is an outlet of bullying that's happening, and trolling, other known as trolling. But it came from different area. It came from hurt people. It came from an area of Tiger Swan, which actually hired people to do trolling. It came from the local areas of Bismarck called Bizmen, where they would have these people sign up and do it in their own areas, but also came from our own people who were hurt from what they read in those three areas. And I've done a lot of putting fires out, talking with people, re-educating them. and just sharing with them, taking the time as we're doing. And it's not easy. There's times I've picked up a call and I actually spoke to one of the trolls, and it was
How was
highly
that?
toxic.
It's highly
It was
toxic, really.
very toxic. I realize there's a lot of imbalanced people out there that are trolls, and they finally have a platform to release it on. We're dealing with the radio out in Fargo, which she's been attacking water protectors left and right, especially myself, and encouraging the trolls to do that. It's been a journey, but also helping other water protectors, saying that you don't worry about that. That character assassination, that's not who you are. We know who you are. Let's stay balanced together. Let's help each other, and don't read it. It's not important. Now you can just block. Just block it.
Right, right. Well, it's valuable. It's valuable
Very
lessons
valuable.
valuable lessons you've learned. Myron, it's always a pleasure to connect with you. This is the second or third time I've had a great privilege to connect with you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for being on the program, and we look forward to seeing more of what's ahead and the information that you're going to share with all of us. So, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it. How would you say? Remind me. Thank you, and until next time.
Yes. I just wanted to say thank you, Greg, for your hard work and dedication to come down to Bismarck and cover the stories and the research, just getting firsthand in there to get the accurate information. I want to appreciate all that hard work. I know Bismarck's a way out of the way in the middle of nowhere.
Fascinating
So
place.
you.
It was a blessing to actually be there and meet all of the amazing folks that I met there. I mean, it came from nowhere, really. So when things like that happen, it's like, okay, Spirit's taking me there. I'm going.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
and it is Bismarck is over tribal land, so there's a lot of ceremonial land over there.
yeah.
So it's got a lot of that grounding. Even though of what we went through, I went to several sacred places over there with some tribal members. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we would
Fascinating
say
place.
Bija, they say Bijat you, which is thank you.
Bijat you.
Yep, Bija you.
Bija you.
Yep, that's thank you. And Punidawa.
Punidawa.
Punidawa, exactly.
Punidawa.
That's see you later.
See you later.
See you again.
I love that. Punidawa.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Myron, thank you very much.
And I just want to thank everybody for their solidarity. Everybody that's been just passing and sharing and asking questions and making sure they know what's going on. So it's been a blessing.
Right on, right on. Keep on keeping on. I look forward to seeing more of what you're going to do. So, all right, folks, look at the bottom of your screen. Check out Myron Dewey and Digital Smoke Signals. Thank you for being on the program. And until next time, take care.